Thanks. Welcome everyone to the remote special commission work session of October 18, 2021. The port is working diligently to address the threat posed by COVID-19 to Thurston County, the state of Washington, and the United States. On March 16, 2020, the commission adopted resolution 2020-03, authorizing certain emergency powers in light of the COVID-19 outbreak, including invoking applicable emergency exemptions to meeting notice requirements and location restrictions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to that resolution, the Port of Olympia Commission is conducting today's meeting remotely. The port is following the guidance from Thurston County Health Department to take all efforts to prevent the spread of this virus, and is acting in the interest of the safety and welfare of the public, the community, and our employees to limit its spread. So we have a slightly revised agenda. I had the packet in front of me that I got last week, but I think the latest agenda shows item number 1, county redistricting with Romero Chavez visiting us. Hi, Romero. And then item 2 is the 2022 draft port operating budget and capital investment plan advisory. And item 3 is the upcoming topics and agenda items. So do I have a motion to approve this agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, commissioners. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have an agenda. First item on the agenda is a county redistricting review, and Romero Chavez, Thurston County Executive Director, is visiting us. Welcome, Romero.
Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. Sam, it's always a pleasure to come before you and address you in this matter. Let me give you a little bit of perspective. I'm going to be introducing also Jamie Caldwell from the county. She will give you a little more of the details. We're going to tag team on the presentation that we have for you this afternoon. Early in the year, I came before you with the steps that we needed to do in terms of balancing the Board of County Commissioners districts as a result of the 2020 census. The objectives that I outlined before you was really based on the time constraints that we had, since we didn't receive at that time the data of the census. It will put us in the position of very tight timelines as to what we needed to do in terms of achieving major objectives that I highlighted to you. Hopefully we can balance the population. That's the main objective among the 3 commissioners districts, and I believe the port districts following along the same lines. Also, the objective was to, when we shift population, to move entire districts. So we don't split districts in terms of the voters. That makes it an easy reconciliation of the voters by the auditor's office. We're going to, I highlighted that based on the time constraints, we're going to be presenting this to the Board of County Commissioners, a single proposal. And also, the objective is any elected officials, they might be sitting on, current serving on the positions they have, county commissioners, port commissioners, as a result of the redistricting, will not be affected. And also, we took into account, you will hear those a little more in details, all the candidates that running for offices on those positions as well. We took that into account. I present this information to the Board of County Commissioners this past Tuesday. That was last week. And they were amicable to the idea, to the extent that tomorrow I will be bringing an item to the board to set a public hearing related to the redistricting for November 9th. And that is the next steps in the process. So what you will hear today is in more detail as to how this proposal has come to balancing the population among the 3 districts. So at this point, Jamie Caldwell is a staff member from the county. She is the engine behind all the coordination on the many districts that we needed to move, as well as the coordination with the auditor's office. So with your permission, I would like to introduce you to Jamie Caldwell.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Shayla, would you mind advancing it to slide number 6? I think the information that Ramiro covered was in the previous slides, and I'm going to take you guys right to the maps there. Thank you so much. So when we initially took a look at everything, we anticipated the population total to come in somewhere around 290,920 people. In order to balance out the population in each district to get them as equal as possible, each of them would have to have approximately 97,000 people. That would have required us to move about 4,300 people from District 2 to District 1 and 1,890 people from District 1 to District 3. Could you advance it one slide, please? When the population totals came in, we discovered that there were actually 294,784 people, or 81 people in the county. This meant that we need to move as close to 5,576 people as possible from District 2 and redistribute them between District 1 and District 3. Of those people moved, District 1 needed to receive, District 1 needed to receive 3,745 people, District 3 needed to receive 1,831. And our goal was to have each district contain as close to 98,260 people as possible. Our plan is to move precincts within those black focus areas on the map there. So if you could advance it one slide, please. This is a zoomed in version of the previous map there, so you could see the focus areas a little bit more clearly. The first proposed set of moves shifts precincts number 80, 307, 308, 309, 310, 311, 316, and 317 from District 2 to District 1. Those are the dark green highlighted precincts on the map. After moving, they would then become dark purple. Precinct 80 is the only one right up at the top of the map there outside of the focus area. That was a requested move from our elections department because that precinct has under 10 voters in it, and they want to eventually combine it with another precinct after the moves are all completed. The second proposed move has precincts 219 and 243 shifting from District 1 to District 3. Those are the dark purple highlighted precincts, and after moving, they would become then dark peach in color. Due to the population density in these precinct areas, a third move is recommended to shift precincts 67 and 412 from District 3 to District 1 to help balance it out. Those are those dark peach colored precincts down towards the bottom there, and after moving, they would then become dark purple in color. Could you advance it one more slide for me? That first move there would then shift 5,455 people from District 2 to District 1. The second set of moves would shift 2,722 people from District 1 to District 3. And the third would move 817 people from District 3 to District 1. Could you advance it one more time for me? After all those moves are completed, District 1 would have gained 3,550 people and end with a population total of 98,065, which is approximately 33.27% of the population total. District 2 would have lost 5,455 people and end with a population total of 98,382 people, which is approximately 33.37% of that population total. And District 3 would have gained 1,905 people in total and end with a population of 98,334, which is about 33.36% of that population total. This last map here shows you what the new boundary lines would be. Pardon me, it also shows you where all the commissioners currently resided, and to show you that we didn't actually shift anybody out of their respective districts. We were trying to work in on those focus areas and make sure that we didn't move anybody around and take them out of their respective district.
So commissioners, at this point, we're open for questions. We can go back on the maps, any clarification. We're here to answer any questions that you may have. I know there's a lot of numbers we just throw your way. And again, I think with this proposal, we have achieved the objective of balancing the population. We have achieved the objective of shifting entire precincts. We have also achieved the objective of not out-districting any sitting or potential commissioner or potential candidate, in this case, for the Port of Olympia Commission. So if I go back to the initial objectives that I highlighted a couple months ago, and today, I think we have met just about every single objective with this proposal.
Thanks, Romero and Jamie. Commissioner McGregor or Commissioner Zeta, do you have any questions or comments?
I would just thank the county for your good work on this. We completely trust your experts on this. And I think what we'll be really interested in is what it might look like for 5 and what the costs might be for 5. But we got to do 3 first.
Yeah, that is correct. The 5 commissioner option, I can give you an update that Sam and I have been working on this. We have a draft joint resolution. And in fact, I will be reviewing the draft resolution with the Board of County Commissioners tomorrow morning. And I'm sure Sam's going to do the same with you, commissioners. And at some point we'll coincide as to when you may consider approving that joint resolution for the 5 commissioners. But Commissioner Zeta, you're correct. 2 different processes associated with one another, but separate.
Thank you. I just want to express my appreciation. I've been through one of these before, about 10 years ago, and it was interesting to see how all the pieces fit together and how you make sure you're not splitting precincts and you're not causing other issues in trying to align population. And it has to do with population, not with registered voters. And sometimes people don't always understand that. So assuming that this moves forward and the commissioners at tomorrow's meeting or whatever, set up the public meetings or whatever you're going to hold, this would be all completed before the end of the year and then approved and moving forward. So thanks for all your hard work. I know it's not easy. And Ms. Caldwell, I'm sure you probably would look like me if you had to do this too many times where you wouldn't have any hair left. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work on the county's part. So thanks.
Thanks, commissioners. I do have a question or two, Romero and Jamie. Can we go back to the slide, last slide we're on? That my question is, while that's coming up, is that so you literally had to take into account, so we have, I think, 4 individuals running for court offices. So somehow, did you have to take that into account where they live so that they stay in that district that they're currently running for? Is that true?
Yeah, that is correct, Commissioner.
Huh, interesting. And so I see you were able to do that. Can we go back 2 more slides? And yeah, that's good. That slide right there. So this is, you might say, anecdotally, but how did it end up? I know that one time a port commissioner lived in for District 1, lived in the darker purple. That would be just west of Deschutes River and Capitol Lake. I mean, how did that end up, those two precincts that appear to be part of the west side, but they ended up in District 1? Is there anecdotally, do you know any stories around that?
When we were looking at moving the precincts themselves, we had to try and stick with as close to, we had that primary number that we, would give us the exact amount of people we'd have to move. Unfortunately, none of the precincts had exactly the number of people that we needed to move. So we were looking at precincts that were on the borders of each of the districts that would be as close as possible. Because we also had to take into account like the bodies of water and things like that, because you can't split it right down the center there either. So we were just trying to stay as close to the border areas as possible in those initial focus areas that were presented to the Board of County Commissioners, and then as close to the number that we would have to move around in order to get us to that 98,200, I think it was 60.
Oh, great. So those 2 dark purple ultimately go to District 3 from District 1 to District 3. Is that correct?
Yes, and because they're so densely populated, that's why we did that, the dark peach move that's down just below it. Because the population density in those precincts themselves is so high, we did that one last move to help balance out the shift of people that went from District 1 over to District 3, because it was so large that it actually threw the percentage off just slightly.
Oh,
And if I may, we approach this project with a purely technical exercise. And that is the result of the technical exercise that Jamie described. So beyond that, there really wasn't anything else we were considered other than the objectives that I highlighted to you earlier.
okay. Excellent. Well, thank you for doing this rebalancing, Jamie and Romero, and thank you for presenting this to us. Okay, if no other comments or questions, let's move on to item number 2 of today's work session.
Thank you for the time, Commissioners. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day, Romero and Jamie. Thank you. Next item is called 2022 Draft Port Operating Budget and Capital Investment Plan Advisory. Sam Gibney presenting.
Great, thank you, Commissioners. So we have a subset of the overall budget to look at in more detail today. Here, I've got several members of staff with me, including Matt Peach, the Senior Administrative Services Manager, and who also serves as our Budget Officer. So I'm going to turn over to Matt, and then we have Lisa Parks and Jenny Folia Jones on the line with this as well. So you can take it away, Matt.
Great. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Matt Peach, Senior Administrative Services Manager. Next slide, please. Today's agenda includes a review of the capital investments budget, community events requests and recommendations, the Port Centennial commemoration, tax levy and tax levy uses, port debt review, and lastly, a time for commission Q&A. Next slide, please. And first up, we have Lisa Parks to review the capital investment plan and capital budget.
Thank you, Matt. But Lisa, before you start, commissioners, can we agree I think we'll probably have 3 or 4 presenters. Would you like to hold your questions? And I would suggest we ask questions at the end of each section. Is that good for you, Commissioner Zita McGregor?
Works for me, Commissioner Downing.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you, Matt, for that information.
Great. Well, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Lisa Parks. I'm the Capital Investment Planning and Environmental Programs Director. So I'm going to be reviewing with you today the capital investment plan and the capital budget. So next slide, please. So I wanted to first just touch base a little bit on the process. So based on the recommendation out of the Mal Foster Alonji organizational assessment, we're working towards creating a multi-year capital investment plan. That capital investment plan is a work in progress this year. So in 2021, we're trying to build the initial program. By the end of 2022, we hope to have a really robust 5-year projection. And then by the end of 2023, we hopefully will have implemented a rolling 10-year capital investment program that looks not only at capital items, but also looks at expensive capital maintenance and planning projects, and helps us to program those expenses in a way that makes a lot of sense for the purposes of the organization, but also helps to leverage external funding sources for those different big ticket items. There are lots of grants and appropriations that are available, and it's helpful to outline those. Particularly, for example, we anticipate having some additional federal funding sources for infrastructure. If we have a multi-year capital investment plan and we identify a project that may be out a couple of years, but has a program that becomes available that it fits with initially, we have the ability to view that and determine that it might be better to move up that particular project to match the funding that's becoming available. So it really is a matter of trying to understand more than at a single year level what our large ticket items might be, and understand how we can leverage those external funding sources. The other thing that we've done this year, in addition to, as we're beginning to build the program, we are identifying these types of projects that I mentioned, both capital maintenance and planning. But we're also trying to view these larger expense items, especially capital projects, from the perspective of understanding the different phases of those projects. Most projects will include some level of conceptual planning. They generally are going to include design, engineering, and permitting, as well as then the competitive bid and construction project process for large ticket items, whether it's maintenance or capital. And so we want to make sure that we're cognizant of those things, using the initial conceptual planning phases as a way to have good, solid cost estimates and projections for funding needs moving forward. So that's a lot of what we have focused on to date. Next slide, please. So for 2021, the focus, some of our focus has been on, again, accurate forecasting. So you will see several projects on the capital budget that include planning, design, and engineering phases. Again, that helps us to position those projects for external funding, particularly in anticipation of increased federal funding opportunities. It helps us to have really good cost projections moving forward into the next phases. And we also are providing a continuity from projects that were identified on the 2021 capital budget that were not able to be completed. So we have continued those projects over into the next year as well. Some of our challenges, we do have some projects on the capital budget list that are grant dependent, and I can point those out to you if you have questions. We also recognize that there may be some permitting challenges for some of our projects moving forward. There's some federal agency disagreements with regard to some in-water maintenance projects that we may be dealing with. And some of the other challenges include project management responsibilities and our approach to those types of components of any kind of a major project. And then just the sheer volume of projects in terms of workload and staff to be able to move those forward and manage those. Next slide, please. So this is a summary of the capital budget items. This is not the full capital investment plan. These are the projects that will be funded out of the capital budget. Several of the capital maintenance items and the planning projects, for example, are funded out of operations budgets. So as we are beginning to build this capital investment plan, we'll be able to share that a little bit more thoroughly with you. But for now, what we're showing for today's purposes are those items that are intended to be funded out of the port's capital budget. They're organized by business unit, airport, marina and boat works, marine terminal, properties, unified maintenance, and then general administration. We have generally identified about $1.9 million of port funds that would be necessary for these projects. About $861,000 in 2022 would be grant funds if we are awarded those, primarily for the terminal project. We already have accepted the port cybersecurity infrastructure, so we know that project is moving forward if you agree to this list. And so the total cost, including port funds and grant funds anticipated, is about $2.7 million, just shy of $2.8 million actually. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions when we get to the end, but I think the next slide is Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Commissioners, do you have any questions of Lisa at this point?
I'd just like to comment. Thank you for talking about some of these, some of the terms I was looking for, that this is going to be a rolling plan and that there is flexibility. So if something is out 5 years and it turns out that maybe 3 years away, it's better to figure that in, that there is flexibility for that to move around. So I appreciate that. And as you already said, we already approved the cybersecurity plan at the last meeting, I believe. So thank you for presenting that. And I'll look forward to seeing this as this moves forward into from a 5 to a 10 year. So thank you.
You're welcome.
How about you, Commissioner Zeta? Any comments at this point? Was that a no? No? You're good. Okay, thanks. Lisa, I got a couple of questions. One is, if you can go back to the process, capital investment plan process. Yeah, the only thing I want to comment on there is I just don't see how we could have a 10-year program for capital investment plan.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
for me, that's just a long ways to look out. There's too many uncertainties in life, and capital investments are, you know, somewhat dependent upon the realities of business and how the port is doing, you know. And of course, you know, what monies do we have for capital investment and, you know, that kind of thing. So that's my first comment. Sam,
Yeah.
did you want to jump in?
Yeah, Commissioner, if the way that I tend to think about these as a engineer's done a lot of those things like when you're getting out to those type of timeframes at 10, you know, oftentimes we have a 20-year. You don't have a lot of certainty in those out years, but what it does do is to put out there things that we know they're coming to the end of their service life. And so we can go, okay, we know we've got a roof that's going to need to be replaced in, you know, within 10 years, and it's out there, and we you know, we really start to plan for it, and we can see how much money we're going to need to be budgeting kind of year after year. So I absolutely understand, like, you know, it's you know, you never end up doing your annual capital budget, you know, 10 years from now, the way that you project. But you do get to put things on your radar screen, as I like to call it, and really do that type of planning and projecting so that you can see things coming.
Okay, I see. Okay. Thank you, Sam. Next slide, Lisa.
Mhm.
Next, one more slide, please. And so I would just like to tell my fellow commissioners that I did some, you might say, field work last week, and I met with Rudy and Lynn and TJ. And I'm sorry if Alicia, Alicia, if Alicia's on, sorry I didn't have time to meet with you, Alicia. But I'd just like to go through in general at the airport. In general, all those seem pretty reasonable. The big ticket item is the runway reconstruction, which next year has $50,000 for planning and design. And you know that runway has not been resurfaced since it was built in the 1940s. So that's quite old. Next, I went to, I talked with TJ and I looked at his projects, and he did say that wash down filtration system for $44,000, that's quite critical. If they could replace it tomorrow, they would, because the company is almost out of business and parts are hard to come by and so on and so forth. And it really helps us. It's essential for us meeting our environmental requirements at the boatyard. So, then I met with Lynn, and the only thing I have to say about Lynn is, or about the marine terminal rather, is the, we talked about a couple of things there. And when we're looking at that, oh yeah, there's something called a sweeper, marine terminal, oh, sweeper for $350,000. And the WAP settlement requires us to have a very particular sweeper called a Elgin is the brand, Crosswind Sweeper is the model. And, you know, I would, we don't take action at work sessions, but in the upcoming budget meetings, in a regular commission meeting, I would make a motion to investigate whether or not that sweeper for $350,000 can be a electric sweeper. I think that I voiced support for moving our fleet at the port to electric vehicles as they become due. So this is a perfect example. And believe it or not, I went to the Elgin website and the first thing that came up was electric sweeper. So, I mean, but I think that we would have to check with WAP. I don't know. I wasn't able to see any prices, but you know, hopefully it's not more. That's plenty of money for a regular sweeper. But anyway, that's one thing. And then last but not least, Alicia's on board with that. I see at the top of the few maintenance items that that department is requesting is the E-Transit cargo van. So that appears to be an electric or hybrid cargo van. So I appreciate that, Alicia. And I just want to make those few comments. So I just wanted to be on record as saying I'd like to see that sweeper for the marine terminal be an electric sweeper. That's all. Okay, back to you. Is Jenny up next, Sam? Thank you, Lisa.
Jenny's up next.
Oh,
it looks
Zita,
like-
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Zita.
I don't know if Commissioner McGregor might have questions on this page, but let's go back, please. I found that this is page 81 in our big budget book, and if staff would kindly cross-reference when we have pages like this in new presentations, if you would be good enough to let us know what page it is in the big budget book, that would be so helpful. So if I'm interested in some of the marine terminal purchases too. I like Commissioner Downing's suggestion of an electric sweeper. Of course, we'd have to find out how much that would cost. I understand that equipment is required to meet the agreed order from the lawsuit last year. The terminal paving, remind me, have we already got that grant, that $382,000 grant?
No, I think is Len on? Len might be able to add to this, but no, we have applied for a MARAD grant and are awaiting notification on that.
Okay,
Len,
if
you have anything?
we don't get the grant, I would say wait on that.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
On the RV resort has now been removed. Okay, so that's a change here. Under
Nope.
general and administration, there was 250,000 for the RV resort. That's been removed.
Commissioner, it's actually been moved up to properties. It still is in the plan. It just was moved to properties.
Oh, I see. There it is. Okay. So the RV resort infrastructure is, we're running into some troubles there because the proposal is not allowed by the City of Olympia's shoreline master plan. And I understand that the court has asked them to change their shoreline master plan, but that's kind of a big ask. So I think that we should wait on that and put that $250,000 into the next year. And really, we ought to let the two new commissioners who will be coming in January, they ought to have a say in this because that's a big commitment. There's some issues with it, and I really think we ought to wait on that.
So,
Commissioner,
did you want me to provide some information on those comments, Commissioner Zita?
okay.
So the terminal paving project is grant dependent, and the plan is if we are not successful in obtaining that MARAD grant, one of the projects that we have in the operating budget is to do a pavement rating condition process for all of the port properties, which is something that was not completed as part of the asset assessment. And so if we don't get this grant, I believe that is the plan, is to wait and figure out exactly where the overall pavement needs for that project fit in with the overall pavement conditions throughout the port. In terms of the RV resort, it's actually the zoning requirements that an RV resort isn't currently authorized RVs are allowed as an accessory use only open to marina tenants, and we're asking that it be allowed as a permitted use. The city of Olympia actually adopted an updated shoreline master program that was approved in June of this year that actually does allow camping and RV parks within the marine recreational shoreline environment. So that project is also dependent on whether or not that zoning text amendment is approved, and we're going to be going back to the Planning Commission in November, and then on to the City Council Commission, probably after the first part of the year.
So thanks for that information, Lisa. And that's good news that the paving project will assess our paving needs if we don't get the grant. I think it's a good idea to assess our paving needs, whether we get the grant or not. It's right along with market studies. You know, we've made purchases before doing thorough market studies in the past, and really it's better planning if we can do the assessments before we make big financial commitments, and the paving assessment, needs assessment, is a good example of that. So I fully support us doing that assessment and waiting on the paving until it is done.
Yeah, and in this case, the terminal paving was identified in the asset assessment as one of the larger needs for the marine terminal. The rest of the pavement that the port owns and manages district-wide was not evaluated. So the need for the terminal paving has already been established. I apologize, I should have clarified. If we don't get the grant to fund it now, we would do the pavement condition rating system and then understand how that already assessed terminal paving need fits in with the overall project. So Len would say I would be remiss if I didn't identify for you that the asset assessment did point out terminal paving as an important need at the marine terminal.
Like to get Commissioner McGregor's take on this.
Thank you, commissioners. I'm wholeheartedly in support of any time we can replace a vehicle, that it be looked at as replacing with an electrical model versus a diesel powered or gas powered model. Some things can be, some things cannot, but I think it's worthy of looking at, such as the sweeper, such as the transit cargo van that Commissioner Downey had alluded to. As far as the rest of these go, all these are going to be brought back, especially the paving and some of these high ticket items we brought back to the new commission when it takes place, and they'll have a voice in whether they want to move it forward based on the information that's supplied by staff, or whether they don't want to do it. So I think these are things we need to have on there as possibilities, knowing that the next commission will have the approval to move it or not move it, depending on what they see from the staff reports that are generated. So I think it's important to have them on there. These are things that could potentially happen and very likely may happen, but many of these will come back for commission approval because of the dollar values. So I'm fine with leaving them on there.
Well, thank you, commissioners. And I had one last question of Sam, which is, I guess you haven't talked about, where the money's going to come from. I mean, in a typical year, not all the capital budget is funded. We've seen that from our experience. But so you've got $2 million in reserve or from operating income to fund most of these projects.
Yes, so that the call out box there is $1.9 million coming from our cash reserves, and then grant funds of $860,000. then that is reflected in the overall statutory budget that is presented, that shows here's the operating income in, revenue in, revenue out, et cetera. So that's all accounted for in that statutory budget that we presented at the last couple, the work session in the meeting. So we are planning on spending from our cash reserves on this. At the end of the day, we still end up with a positive increase in cash. I'm pretty sure I'm correct with that. Matt Peach, if you're listening in, that even accounting for this expenditures of cash on capital projects, at the end of the day, our statutory budget shows an increase of ending capital. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Great.
While we're talking about cash reserves, the report we got from the state auditor last week showed that the cash flow in was overstated by over $2 million in the last cycle that was assessed. So taking over almost 3 million out of cash reserves, I'm a little nervous because I'm not sure how much is really there.
And Commissioner Zita, I can have Matt speak to that. I would tell you that those were the cash flow statement that was submitted to the auditor has since subsequently been corrected. So we have a high degree of confidence in the amount of cash that we have available. And I will turn the floor to Matt, and he can give you his thoughts on that.
Yeah, so what was submitted to the auditors for their review was an incorrect statement of cash flow. However, with their help and corrections, what is now going to be shown on the state website are that auditor's office published financials will show the corrected financial cash flows. Additionally, the cash that was on the net operating position or a balance sheet was correct.
Thanks for that information, Matt. If it would be possible for us to get written copies of that updated information, that would be so useful, because the last information we got from the state auditor's office last week showed about 2.2 million in overstated cash flow. So it would be great to see those corrections.
Sure, I will send you the final financials via
Thank
email.
you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Commissioners, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Sam, for those comments. And now can we turn to Jenny Folia-Jones?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Jenny Folia-Jones, Senior Manager of Communications, Marketing, and Government Affairs. And today I'll be discussing with you community events, requests, recommendations, and then the Port Centennial as well. So next slide, please. So just to remind the Commission of how we go about getting our numbers every year based on the resolution 2015-09. So we do take up to 1% of the gross operating revenue, and we always use the year that we've fully closed out so that we know what the operating revenue was. So this 22 number recommendations are based off of final closure of 2020's numbers. We do take 30% of that number, and we have that set aside for cash. So we do not exceed 30% of the budget with cash. And then of that 30%, 10% is reserved and set aside for opportunities that arise throughout the year. And that is then, per the resolution, that is for the executive director to make a final decision based on recommendations throughout the year for those opportunities that do come up. So looking at this year's numbers, based off of 2020, we do have the allowable budget that we could go up to based on this up to 1% gross operating revenue is just over $126,000. Of that, cash contributions are not to exceed just under $38,000. Of that, 10% set aside for executive director authority throughout the year for the recommendations that do arise throughout the year is just under $3,800. And then that leaves total cash contributions minus that 10% would be just over $34,000 that we could spend this year. Next slide, please. And this is the process that we go through when the recommendation or when the applications come in. So we do have to make sure that we are legally having 3 questions met. And so if the application meets all 3 of these gray diamond questions here, then they can move on for a recommendation for approval. If they do not meet one of these 3, then they're automatically disqualified. So legally, we have to ask the question, is the request governed by an express grant of authority? For us, it would be economic development, promotion, or tourism. If so, then we do say, it should be is, not Oz, sorry. Is the port receiving something of value in return, which would be prominent advertising or promotion? If so, then does the event positively market the port and port businesses and the port's mission to support trade, tourism, and economic development? And if yes, then we go through, they do qualify for funding. We then have set an additional set of criteria that we do put them against for basically to see how does it align with our mission to promote the maritime shipping, aviation, commercial, or industrial interests of the port. And that's how we are basing our recommendations to you now. Next slide, please. So this is the 2020, should have changed that. I apologize. No, 2022. I read that. Sorry, 2022 recommendations for cash. So here we do have, you'll see all of those listed in yellow are ones that did qualify and met our criteria. The one that's listed in green, unfortunately, it's the Washington Center for the Performing Arts did submit an event that did not meet our criteria. So they are not part of the recommendation that we will see on the next slides, but I did want to show you everybody that did submit, just so you can see them all. So everything in the yellow did meet the required criteria. And so you'll see what they requested in cash and then what we're proposing in cash for the funds. You'll see that some events did not actually request cash. They're only requesting in kind, which you will see on the next slides. But I do want to let you know that the $1,500 per event that's being recommended is based off of prior years, what the commission has approved. And this is a lesser amount than some years that we have done. We did lessen it a couple years ago from $2,500 per event normal givings, and now we've got it down to $1,500 per event. So we do have requested 31.5, and we are recommending a $12,000 cash contribution to events. Next slide. So this does show you everything. So this is where we have the proposed cash of $12,000 that we just went over, proposed in kind. So in kind, again, just as a reminder, is any facilities that they're looking for. It might be parking lot use, it might be the use of the port plaza, dock space for vessels, that sort of thing. We do have staff time, and staff time is allocated by working the event, staff that will be there to work the event and help with that. And then promotional items, of course, is if we're going to have a booth at the event, that we would be having some sort of a giveaway at those events. And so when we look at that combined, the cash as in kind is not a cash number. So everything else does equal $22,600 for cash spendings. If you compare 2021 to 2022, we do have a total cash in kind staff and promo budget from 21 of just under 31,000, and this year would be a recommendation of just under 34,000, 22.6 of which is cash. And off to the side, you can see here at the bottom left, you'll see the calculations of what we could go up to for spending. We are well below the numbers of what we could be doing based on the resolution. Next slide. And then I do at the bottom, the only change here that you'll see is at the bottom, we did bring in here in the blue, the Summer Nights at the Port. This is previously known as Movies at the Marina. We are changing the name for next year based on the fact that we did expand that event to be more than just the drive-in movies. And so we wanted to make sure that we captured that. So Summer Nights at the Port, we are proposing the 3 events again, as we've done the last couple of years. And the budget numbers did not change for that. So we're still proposing a budget of $24,000, which does include the 3 proposed cash expenditures for the 3 events plus the staff time. And then when you tally up the 24,000 with the 34, it gives you a total of 58,000 combined. That does include the in kind. Whereas the cash number is, I think, right around $47,000 is what the cash contributions would be this year. And those events, I do want to just say those events do not need to go against the criteria because these are posted events. They're not a giving of dollars to the public as far as like a sponsorship opportunity. So, so they don't actually fall into that same criteria level, but I just want you to see what the total event budget would be. Next slide. I have one. Oh, okay. So if you want to back up, if you have questions on the events for this year before I talk about Centennial, or I'm happy to talk Centennial first and then answer any questions on everything.
Commissioner Zeta, go ahead.
So Jenny, thanks for sorting through all this and evaluating the requests and presenting the options to us and for keeping the budget reasonable. I looked up South Sound Block Party online and I find no information about it. There's a website, but there's not really anything there except coming next year.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to give you some more information on that. So this is a new event that the planners are just trying to decide. Location right now is really what they're looking at. Ours is #1 location. And so they're hopeful that they can get the spot here for this, but it would be a music festival that they're looking to bring artists in, and it would be a one-day music festival that they would have. They already have some big time sponsors coming online for it too. And so I know that it would be, ticketing sponsors, different things like that. Some pretty big names that they've got out aligned with it, but it would be a music festival right here on the waterfront in Olympia.
I just want to check, are any of the organizers of the South Sound Block Party related to or connected to Port staff?
No, not that I'm aware of at all.
Okay, great. And then I have a question about the summer nights at the port. Those are the outdoor movies, is that right?
Yes.
About how many cars show up each night?
Well, the first year we did drive-in because it was summer before. It was summer of 2020, so we were restricted to keeping everyone in their cars. We were limited to 60 vehicles per event. This last year, this current summer we just went through, we made it a different event structure. So we had live music, we had food trucks, we had movies there. And so with that, I would say we probably got the highest. I would probably say we had a total of maybe 400, 500 people at the event. So I'm not exactly sure the car count, but they were able to fit fine in the parking that we had allocated for them. So I would say maybe 100 cars at most is what we probably saw throughout the event.
Okay. So $7,000 per night and 100 cars, we're spending about $70 per car for these movie nights.
So yeah, but it has expanded. So again, it's not just movies, and that's why we're changing the name. It's more of a waterfront festival that we've got going on with, like I said, food trucks, live music, some kids activities there, as well as a beer garden that was raising funds for local charities here. And then we also showed the movie later in the evening. So it was more than just the movies.
Yeah, and it's more people than that. You said it's like 400 to 500 at our top end.
Yeah.
So the port commissioners should be aware that we're spending that much for that number of people. So it was about $70 per car the first night. And 400 people at the highest. If it was 300 people average, Jenny said it was 400 people at the highest event this year. So if it was like 350 average, that's what, $20 per person? Wait. Yeah, $20 per person that we're spending to put this on. So the commissioners just should have that in mind.
Thanks, Commissioner Zeta. Commissioner McGregor, any questions so far?
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm going to state that I don't have a problem putting on this event. This would only be like the the second year of really an expanded venue of offerings. And I think that as it becomes more well-known in the community, you're going to see more and more people attending. And so I think it needs to be given a couple of years of buildup, because unless it starts to drop off in attendance, I think it's a good public offering to the people of the community to come down and enjoy what's happening down on on North Point. I do have a couple of questions. What is For the Love Foundation Festival? What is that?
Sure. So For the Love Foundation is a local charity that they raise money for other nonprofits. So they actually ran the beer gardens that we had here for our events. And so they had selected Safe Place. They did the Shag Apartments downtown, and they did the Coats for Kids Drive, were the 3 charities that they supported for each of our events here. They are wanting to put on a big, last I heard, it was going to be music, very much like what our event was, but they were going to have a big cornhole tournament that we're hoping to bring in people, and it would be all for funding. Everything would go to that charity that would then support other local nonprofits here within our community.
And that only involves some staff time and some in-kind being use of the plaza or something like that. Is that what the in-kind would be?
Yes, they're asking for the lot where we held our movies events, that lower lot out by the North Point, right next to the boat launch parking lot. They're asking for that lot and then some parking space.
Okay. And then the last question I had is the boat building heritage class, steam bending. Is that something held down in the port area, or?
Not right now. So that is part of that's our Butis folk school that has put that request in. And so they're hoping to be able to put this boat building class on and then bring an instructor. Normally they bring the instructor down from Port Townsend that can do that class for students. And when I say students, it's adults can go to that class and all of that too. So it's for just members of our community.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I had at this point. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah.
Thanks, commissioners. Thanks, Jenny, for putting this together and managing this program. I guess my first question is, do we not have, or are you planning to have music on the plaza? As I recall, we had that, I don't know if it was twice in 2019, maybe we skipped in 2020. Where are we at with that?
Sure. So that is the Olympia Downtown Alliance that has been doing that for several years. And at the time that our applications were due, they were not sure if they were going to continue the festival. They did switch their festival this last year to be Summerfest, which we did support. Summerfest is they did 6 weekends downtown to try to drive business downtown, and had kind of a street, almost like a street festival that went on. And so they, as a board, are deciding which way that they're going to go for this next year. And that's where, so we did not get an application for them to meet the deadline for the budget. But that's where I'm assuming they're one that when they do decide what they want to do, they would be one that would put in for the executive director's additional approval that the executive director would have to be able to approve for the year. So I wouldn't count them out as far as us supporting them and whatever they're doing next year, but I did not receive an application from them, and they were aware that they were not meeting our deadline.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, rather than say I like this event or don't like that event, whatever, I appreciate you managing the budget overall. And I think that it kind of depends on where we go with the latter part of the discussion in terms of, how the tax levy and the budget and commissioner projects and so on and so forth. So I think I'll, just withhold. I mean, obviously, if you needed to, you could scale back here and there. Appreciate Commissioner Zeta talking about the summer nights at the port. While it is the most expensive thing on the page, it's also directly put on by the port, and showcases the important part of the port property. So And I've been to that event. It's extremely nice event, well run. So, and it's growing. It is growing, like Commissioner McGregor says. So, okay, if no other questions, please continue, Jenny.
Sure. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears to Centennial Planning. Next slide. So as you know, next year, 2022, is the Port Centennial. So the goal is obviously to celebrate the Port's 100-year history. We will be hopefully having a year-long celebration, with the focus being really July through November. November 7th, 2022 is the actual anniversary of the port. So what staff is doing is planning for the bulk of the activities to really take place between July and November. Of course, this makes sense to us because that is event season. So we're fully anticipating that community events will be back next year, and we'll be able to utilize those community events to showcase the port and our history when we're at those events too, to try to maximize our dollars on this. So we have a planning team here internally that's made up of 12 staff members, and we've split up into some subcommittees. So the subcommittees are legacy project, media promotion, events, and outreach. And so we have some staff members that are only on one team and some staff members that are on multiple teams. Emily and I are definitely the points for the planning on all of this. So as we go through, I'm going to hopefully answer a lot of your questions on this. But even throughout the year, if you have questions, Emily and I would be the ones to be talking with Sam and getting you answers for any of your questions that you might have on Centennial. So next slide, please. So this is just, I don't want you to get caught up in the photos or try to give input on these just yet. I just want to show you that one of the projects that we're working on is a legacy project. Legacy project is something that for us at the port to have something that not only welcomes you to port property potentially, celebrates the history and continues to be something that people want to come to. It maybe as a tourism attraction. We're still trying to figure out what this means for the Port of Olympia. And these are just some concepts that I put up here just so you could kind of see some of the things that we are already starting to internally talk about here is, do we put up our gateway sign that was part of our signage plan from years ago? Do we finally spend the dollars to have that done? Of course, it might not look exactly like this, but that would be a welcomer to port property. Is it something like a fog bell that I think it's Port of Friday Harbor? No, Sam knows. Port of somewhere up there.
Roche Harbor.
Roche Harbor, thank you. One of those harbors. So Port of Roche Harbor, they have something like this, but they have a big ceremony every night that takes place and people come from all over to watch it. Or is it, just a clock? We have a lot of ideas. So I'm not looking for feedback on this today. It's just to give you an idea that we're looking for something that really commemorates the port's centennial and celebrates the history, and then also is something that people hopefully will recognize and maybe come to see. And so our plan for this is to one, kind of gather our ideas here with the team, and then we will be bringing it back to commission in the first quarter of 2022 to give staff an opportunity to give their input on it, give the commission opportunity to give their input, and then be able to come back with final recommendations and approval by the commission at that time. So I just wanted, like I said, to give you an overview. Port of Tacoma just finished their Centennial project. Granted, their Centennial was a number of years ago. I think it was 2017, 2016, somewhere in there, if I'm not mistaken. And they just finished their Centennial project here recently this year. They had a nice art piece made for it, stuff like that. So we are looking at what other ports have done as well to kind of see what ideas are out there. Next slide. So just a really quick snapshot of some of the planning that we are working on for, so we have two different line items in the budget, and Commissioner Zita, you did ask for the page number. So on your PowerPoint that's in the front of your budget book, page 70 is where you're going to find this. And thank you, Matt, for helping me find that as myself. So page 70 is tax levy uses. This is where these numbers are for you. So you've got the legacy project as one line item, and then you have just Centennial celebration as a second line item in there. So this is Centennial celebration. So a lot of what we're doing is we are already starting to work on video creation. We want to have a historical video made for the port talking about the history, but also create some social media shorts that we can have on the website. We can be showing at different events, etc. We are wanting to do add stuff to our website. So having a timeline created on our website, being able to showcase those videos, having a spot that really we can drive people to that location so that they can get a lot of our historical information from that. We are talking about doing a speakers bureau. This would be something that would be all year long. So we wouldn't just do this July through November, but speakers bureau, we would be getting out to all the rotaries, neighborhood associations, chambers, etc., all the locations that we can to talk about the port's history and what the port has done for the community, and then what we are currently doing today. Of course, utilizing those community events, and part of those community events are our 3 summer nights at the port events that we discussed earlier, but really utilizing that to have a booth space at those events and be able to talk about the port's history as well. We are hoping to have a big gala event. This would be hopefully combining with the customer and partner annual event that we do, but have a really big gala event to celebrate it in November, hopefully right around our anniversary. And we are hoping to get the rotunda for this, to have the big celebration in the rotunda at the Capitol. And, you know, with us, we're kind of talking about, is it fun? Is it themed to a 1920s, roaring 1920s kind of theme with that? Those type of things. So we are in plans for that sort of thing too. We also are, and I do want to, sorry, back up a little bit. Even though it would be combined with the community partner event, this would be a community event. So community members could come celebrate with us. It wouldn't just be for the customers and partners. Past employees, past commissioners, etc., would all be welcome to attend. And then we are talking about fun things like having a boating scavenger hunt around the sound here. And I know that TJ Twant, our senior manager, harbor manager, has some fun ideas for that too. Some other items that we are looking at doing is, flip through my notes here really quick, kind of covered a lot of them, but we are talking about, are we working with and highlighting our tenants throughout the year as well? Do they have any fun anniversaries that we can also, and events and stuff that we can also kind of cross promote each other? KGY and the Port of Olympia celebrate and share the same centennial year. So is there something we can do with KGY to acknowledge them and do a cross promotion on that? Are we also working with some of our tenants like Batdorf to create a fun port coffee blend for the year to celebrate? Are we looking at having, you know, just some fun ideas if we're going with kind of a roaring 20s? Are we looking at how can we utilize some of the new craft brewing to distilling district or entities that are here in town to create some fun, like one of the ideas that we had was to do like 100 bottles of whiskey that then is auctioned off for charity of some sort. So if there's certain things like that, those are the type of things that we're looking at being able to do. So that's pretty much, I think. Let me see if I have another slide here. I'm not sure if I do. Nope. Okay, so I'm happy to answer any of your questions. I already know that there might be some budget questions. I did want to, I've touched base with some of the other ports who have celebrated their centennials. I'm still waiting to hear back from a couple of them on what their budgets were. I can tell you that Port of Tacoma spent $280,000 on their centennial year, 100 of which was their centennial project, so 180 just on events. Port of Longview did not do a legacy project, but they did spend $70,000 just on events for and advertising, etc., for their year. And I do have, like I said, I've reached out to a few more that have already celebrated their centennial to kind of get what their budget numbers were as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you, Jenny. Lots of information. Commissioners, any questions or comments about this topic? Is that a hand, Zeta, or a signal? Okay.
I had a couple of questions. I can't figure out what happened to my. Now I cannot mute myself. Thank you. Anyway, a couple of comments if I could. I know you're not looking for any suggestions on the legacy project concept. That'll come along later, but I'm going to give you a couple of, in the waterfront development plan, there were some themes out there in the marina area that I thought were worthy of revisiting to see if we're going to do something that it might be incorporated into the theme that was in the survey results that were had during that particular planning. So it could kind of link that part together and start to bring the waterfront development plan a little bit forward. But I also would like to comment that I would like to see some kind of plaques or signage or somehow put at every one of the locations we have in the county, the airport, Lacey, the marine terminal, the marina. Just if we're going to commemorate this thing, it needs to be at all our properties that we own and should be recognized at all of those. So that's my comment on that. And then didn't we, and maybe this is before your time, but I thought in 1997 we did a 75-year book on the history of the port. And I'm wondering if that shouldn't be updated and brought forward to the 100th year, because 75 of it's already been looked into. So we only have to cover 25 years, which is more current than having to go back too far. So just some suggestions on all that, and we'll have more on when we have the budget talk. So thank you for letting me give my comments and suggestions.
Yeah, and I can respond to that. Thank you for your suggestions. Yes, I failed to let you know that Shanna Stevenson is already working on updating our book to be our centennial year. And so we do have dollars for printing set aside for that as well, for printing some of those historical books. We are hoping to get a history book into every single library for all Thurston County schools. So every library, school library would get one, as well as every Timberland library and other libraries around, making sure that everyone has one of those in hand. And then we're also talking about having that be a digital version as well, that we would be able to load up to the website so that people could just digitally look at it and flip through it. So yeah, Shanna's already working on that. She is actually one of the authors of our 60th anniversary and our 75th anniversary books. So she is working on the update right now. So thank you. Apologize for not mentioning that.
Thanks, Commissioner McGregor, for those questions. How about you, Commissioner Zita? Any comments about our centennial?
Yeah, I want to thank Commissioner McGregor for mentioning the Waterfront Development Survey. A lot of folks participated in that two-part survey. One was, what do you want to see? And the second part was, what sort of aesthetics would you prefer on the different waterfront development options? And there was a particular section on that second survey that said, what kind of artwork or monuments would you like to see down at the port? And there were some, can we go back to those pictures you showed there, Jenny? Yeah, there were some like this that were offered to the public in that aesthetic survey for the waterfront development planning. And these were not rated highly. People don't want big things like this down at the waterfront. They want open floor plan. They want, just trees and nature. And they didn't like any of the proposals for big structures like this. So Commissioner McGregor's suggestion to look again at the results of that waterfront development survey, and in this case, especially the part 2, the aesthetics, is a really good suggestion, because we already have a lot of input on what people want to see down there. They don't want to see big things like this. The book that you're doing, the history book, that sounds like a great idea. I want to recommend that as you're putting it together, you take a look at a book that was put out by the League of Women Voters, which is a nonpartisan group, called The State We're In. And what's really useful and unique about that is it integrates the history of Indigenous people when it's talking about the history of Washington State. And of course, the history of Indigenous people here in South Sound is important to include in any history that we might write. If we leave out the State Trust people, the Medicine Creek Treaty tribes, that would be a big omission. So we want to be sure and include the original people from the port land, the land that the port now occupies.
Yeah, thank you. And our current history book does include, it does go before port time and does talk about the indigenous people that were here. So we will definitely make sure that, one, if there's not any updates that need to take place to that, but that we definitely keep that information included for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Jenny. Just a couple of comments from me is that I love your idea of the outreach to Rotaries and Kiwanis and local chambers, to get the word out that Port of Olympia has been around for 100 years and we've accomplished a lot of things in those 100 years and we're here to serve the community. So I think that's a great message. I think the book, updating the book, great idea, Commissioner McGregor and Jenny, you're already on top of it. So I've not seen the 75-year book, but I'd love to be the proud owner of a 100-year book when it comes out. I like the idea of, here's how I feel about monuments. Number one, I think it'd be fine to work on it next year, plan it next year and build it in 2023. I'd love to see it tied in with, if we end up doing an administration building and community voting center, community center, or shared space that becomes somewhat of a plaza, it'd be great to have an entryway that commemorates Port of Olympia for 100 years. I also like Commissioner McGregor's idea of the different properties in the airport to make sure it's commemorated at each of these locations so that really it represents the breadth and depth of the Port of Olympia within the Thurston County community. So a lot of good ideas. I look forward to 2022 and seeing some of these ideas, the commemoration of a centennial year. I think it's going to be great. So thank you, Jenny. Okay, there's nothing else. We get on to the most exciting topic. Sorry, Jenny, tax levy and tax levy uses.
Good afternoon again, commissioners. Definitely the most exciting topic. Next slide, please. So today we'll be reviewing an updated proposed tax levy calculation that's based on the most recent correspondence from Thurston County for assessed values across the county. Additionally, Thurston County has provided us with information regarding our administrative refund for 2022 and our projected levy for new construction. Both columns reflect our 2021 tax levy with a 1% increase over the prior year levy of $69,000, as well as levy for new construction of $124,000 and an administrative refund of $25,000. The center column reflects a proposed 2022 tax levy of $7.156 million. The column on the right reflects additional revenue should the port accept $239,000 in bank capacity for a total levy of $7.395 million. Both columns reflect a decrease in the millage rate or the effective rate charged per $1,000 of value that the port receives in tax revenue. Next slide, please. The 2022 budget currently reflects tax revenues that we just discussed of $7.156 million. The expenses paid by the tax levy include principal and interest from our GO bonds of $4.6 million, environmental expenses of $1.5 million, community events $47,000, public amenities $281,000, harbor patrol $36,000, and then special projects include $75,000 for ballot proposition and election costs, $75,000 for 5-member redistricting, $76,000 for centennial events, $100,000 for Centennial project, $65,000 for a strategic plan, and a commission expenses of $473,000, leaving a levy deficit funds deficit of $182,000. Next slide, please. Next up is a review of our debt service over the next 20+ years. The next 4 years reflect debt service payments ranging from $4.6 million to $4.63 million. In 2026, there is currently scheduled a balloon payment on our 2016 B bond for $5,049,000. The total debt service owed in 2026 is $9.24 million, and the years following see decline in debt services as bonds are retired. And if there are any questions on the last 3 slides,
Commissioner Zeta, would you like to start us out?
Yes, Mr. Peach, thank you for the debt review slide. This is great. Are you figuring that we're going to pay off that whole balloon payment in 2026?
I
that
anticipate
On this
refinancing that.
slide?
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't
Is
hear the
that the,
question.
is that the assumption on this slide, that we'll pay that off?
The assumption on the slide is that we will pay the amount due in 2026. I suspect that we will refinance it prior to then.
Yeah, that was, the port always talked about refinancing it. If we could pay it off, that would be great. That would get our debt levels down to a reasonable amount, because currently they're at about double what the SAO recommends. It's very useful to see this, and you know what I'm going to ask for follow-up. I'm going to ask for a future date if you could provide us with a breakdown of what's actually funded in those different categories, because it's hard to tell sometimes. So I'm really glad to see that you've got the bonds all labeled, all the general obligation bonds. Somewhere in there is the log loaders. Somewhere in there is our purchase of the Lacey CBC. Somewhere in there is our purchase of the big blue crane. And that'll be the next thing that would be good to know about. But this is great to see. Thank you so much for providing this view of our debt for now and into the future. And this is assuming that we're not incurring new debt, right?
This is based on what's currently on the books owed.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So if we were to adopt the budget that's before us, there would be new debt incurred.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. How about you, Commissioner McGregor?
There. For some reason, I keep losing my arrow, so pardon me for that. This is something we've seen in many presentations, so there's no new news here other than it'll probably happen as the way Mr. Peach stated, that we'll refinance that 2026 due date there at some point. I know that we've kept track and we've often asked, well, what's the interest rates? But at certain times we can do refinancings and we have to wait until the clock ticks to that time before we can go ahead and do it. But I know that in the past we've refinanced when it's been beneficial to save on interest payments and that type of thing over the course of the many years. And so I'm confident staff's keeping an eye on it. And when it becomes appropriate, we will see some kind of refinancing coming forward, maybe in 24 or 25. But it just depends on what's happening and what's allowed by the bonding financing rules as well. So thank you, Matt.
Okay. Well, thanks, Matt. And so looking at this slide, when will be allowed to refinance the debt is coming due in 2026?
Well, it's a function of, like Commissioner McGregor stated, based on the rules of the various bonding agencies, but there are significant penalties if you prepay these things early and refinance early. So it's a matter of getting to the point with help with our bonding consultant to determine when the best time to refinance will be.
Well, thanks, Matt. Let me rephrase my question.
Sure.
I don't know if you have this in your head, but the question is, when can we legally refinance the debt that's due in 2026 so we don't have to make a $9 million payout out of pocket?
I don't have a date for you, Commissioner.
Okay. Okay. I mean, because obviously it'd be nice if we could pick and choose when we refinance that, but probably we can't, and we just have to accept the interest rates that are occurring at that time. So can you go back 2 slides, please? So getting to the tax levy, you know, the millage rate at the bottom, it looks good because the millage rate is going down, but that's only if a person is selling their house and they see that the Port of Olympia tax rate per thousand is lower because the value of their house went up. So what can we tax so that let's say a person's paying $65.10 per year to the Port of Olympia? What of these factors should we go ahead with to keep that person's tax at $65.10 on a given house?
I guess I'm not sure what you're asking me. I'm sorry.
Okay, so if I'm living in the same house and I pay taxes to the Port of Olympia year after year, and you know, what would it take for my taxes to the Port of Olympia to stay the same from one year to the next? Would it take the 1% increase? Would it take the levy increase for new construction? Would it take the administrative refund re-levy or bank capacity, or none of the above? So that's my question is, you know, what can we vote for as a commission and have people taxes to the port stay a dollar amount the same, not millage rate?
I'd have to run the calculations to determine that, but essentially, yeah, I would have to run the calculations. I'd have to get back to you on that question.
Okay, because that'd be great if you could send that out, because I probably can figure it out on my own, but I wanted to get it from you because you're the expert.
Yeah, and I mean, you would probably forego the 1%, for example, but beyond that, I couldn't tell you exactly. The other two are outside of that.
I would think that the levy increase for new construction is only additional monies collected because there's more houses in Thurston County.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Next slide, please. Oh, Commissioner Zeta, did you have a comment on the prior slide? You want to weigh in on that?
I did. Thank you, Commissioner Downing. If we could go back. So Mr. Peach is quite right. If you wanted to look at the prior slide, was that right?
Yes.
Could we look at the prior slide, please? Well, thank you. So Commissioner Downing, you asked, what would we need to do to keep the tax, the actual amount of taxes that somebody pays on their existing home the same? And Mr. Peach is quite right. We would not take the 1% because that would increase the taxes. Now, if your home value went up from $30,000, from $300,000 to $400,000, even if we don't take the 1%, that person's port taxes are still going to go up because they're going to be taxed on a higher property value. So if we wanted to keep their taxes at $65.10, the example you gave, we would need to not take the 1% increase, and we would probably have to reduce it a little bit. So we would start by not to minimize the impact on Thurston County taxpayers who are already living in existing homes. We would not take the 1% increase, and I would support that option.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeta. Thank you. Okay, next slide, Matt. So I know that Sam asked the three commissioners, so Sam has a sense of, a little bit of how the commissioners are feeling about certain things. But I think I would just like a little bit more clarification on 2 or 3 of these items. So for example, community events, I think that was Jenny's slide, is that correct? For the
That's
most
right.
part. Okay.
Yes.
What about public amenities being suggested at 281,000?
Those are public areas, i.e. trails near the water, the plaza area, maintaining those port assets.
Okay, that's simply maintenance on public spaces.
Mhm.
Okay. And then so then strategic plan. Why is that 65,000? I'm not sure what that entails.
So Commissioner, and just so you know too, I actually have a combined worksheet that I was planning on projecting here. So whenever you're ready for that, that has aggregated each of the commissioners' input onto this and has an opportunity that we can go live on the spreadsheet to adjust things. So whenever you're ready to adjust over to there, we can. The 65,000 is our best estimate on the amount of a consultant contract to assist staff and the commission in coming up with the 5-year action plan that would then result in a detailed annual plan. So really, we've been talking about that for a while now, of doing a update to the strategic plan that is much more detailed and really helps to set the priorities for the organization and align what the commission direction is with what the staff is planning for. So that's a consultant estimate that we have. We've reached out to a couple different folks of what that effort would cost.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, and I will hold my last question about commission expense because I think that's detailed in what you're going to be getting to.
Right.
So
Mhm.
Commissioner Zeta, you had a comment.
Well, since you're asking questions about certain categories, I have one about Harbor Patrol. In an earlier presentation, staff informed us that there was, that we were potentially going to be paying for a sheriff's department vehicle, a sheriff's office boat. And is that in that 36,000 there?
Yeah, no, that and that is separate from the Harbor Patrol operations. That's the Integrity. And that is actually our vessel. It's owned by the Port of Olympia. It is used by the Sheriff's Department, but that cost is not reflected in this number. So the $36,000 is just for the operational expense of the Harbor Patrol boats and then the volunteer management.
Okay, so the sheriff's office boat is not in our budget anywhere?
That is correct.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, good. Any other questions before we move on to? I'm not sure what we move on to. I think we're done with Matt, though. Matt, I think, is this the end of your presentation, Matt?
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. Good. And we'll be talking some more about it. Nice work. Thank you. Okay. Back to you, Sam. I'm not sure what's next.
Great, thank you. And so what I was planning on is just touching on a couple more items, and then at the end, I'll bring up that live spreadsheet that has what each commissioner has submitted, and then to help facilitate your discussion to see if you can come to agreement on what you'd like to see in both the commission budget as well as in the tax levy. So, but first want to just talk very briefly about staffing. If you can go to the next slide. And so we are continuing with our efforts to really have a focus on this unified maintenance approach. We are seeing great cost effectiveness through this approach of just, really being able to accomplish projects for a very reasonable amount of money by using our in-house resources, as well as then to service the business units that we have more effectively. So overall, we are not proposing any change to our FTE count. There might be some reallocation of resources throughout the year, and that is the way that the commission authorizes up to a number of FTEs in this budget process, and then leaves it to the executive director to then allocate those positions out across the different units. So we might see some changes there, but we are not asking for any increase in FTEs from year over year. And next slide. There's questions, but then I think we're ready to go on to the, if you have any questions about staff, or we could go right into, I could share my screen and we can start discussing the commission budget and the tax levy.
Oh, Commissioner Zeta.
So I understand that there's a new focus on doing maintenance internally.
Mm-hmm.
And there are big increases in the maintenance budget pretty much across the board when we read through our big fat budget book. And there's that big line item for paving at the marine terminal. So it's a little hard for port commissioners to tell where the savings are. I hear you say that there are savings, but if it would be possible to put a spreadsheet together so we could see that, that would be useful, because what we're seeing is big increase in the maintenance budget across the board and a big line item for paving, which, when this concept of doing lots of internal maintenance was introduced to us, that was something we said we were going to save a lot of money on, and it's hard to see that here. So that's just a request that would help us evaluate that claim with some data.
Certainly, and it's a point very well taken. And I have always tried to emphasize cost effectiveness in going towards this. So we are accomplishing a great deal more work. So if are there savings year over year in maintenance? Not necessarily, because we're just getting a lot more projects and having our assets being better taken care of. So we're really working on some of those deferred maintenance issues and clearing that backlog, and then just really maintaining to a better standard. So your point is absolutely well taken, and I think that is that difference between cost effectiveness and cost savings.
So if it would be possible to provide some data on that, that would be really useful. And then my second question, my last question at this point, is about the marketing budget. The marketing budget seems to have been increasing pretty steadily in recent years, and now there's a great big request for the Centennial project. And I'm not seeing where the marketing budget shows up in our big budget book. I don't think it does. And it would be useful to have those data also. What is the marketing budget now? How has it gone up in since last year, the last couple years? And how is it projected to go up next year on top of this big line item for the Centennial? So it would be useful to have those data if that's possible.
Sure. Yeah, and just for right now, we'll get those, we'll prepare those, and also know that staff in general, we are noting all the commissioners' questions and making a table with them, as we've done in years past, saying, here's the question that was asked, here's a reply to it, et cetera. So we will have that available for the commission, and we'll do that with questions today. Currently, the marketing budget is included in the administrative budget, but we'll point all of that out to you, and we'll include it in the a table of answering questions.
Is that in our big budget book?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what page that's on?
I don't know the page off the top of my head, so I'm sorry about that.
Here's general admin. I'll review that.
Yeah.
85.
Great, thank you,
Great.
Commissioner McGregor.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to
We
support
had
what,
these things, if we had these things electronically, I could just search for each of those keys. Thank you.
just want to, yeah, I support what Commissioner Zeta proposed about just some sort of narrative about, you know, how the maintenance function has evolved at the port, and doesn't have to be in the form of a spreadsheet, but you know, what we're getting as a result of unifying the maintenance and weighing that against outside professional services that we no longer need, you know,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So that'd be great.
You bet. You bet.
If I might, I'd like to remind the commission that when they started this project, we had a rather robust electrical issue at the marina, and part of it was replacing the pedestals. And as a result of Alicia and a crew that she had working there, they were able to go through and rehab all those pedestals. And it turned out they only had to purchase a very minimal amount to replace those that were damaged beyond repair. But it saved us considerable dollars. And I think there will be a prime example of what this has meant in the way of savings. So I'll just point that out.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. That's right. Okay,
Great.
Sam.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, commissioners, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Great. So
Yes.
this is the commission budget, and so what I have done here, and thank you, commissioners, for getting your submittals in, and I've been able to compile them. So this column here, this column B, is what is included in the draft budget. Column C was just a kind of a placeholder for you to put things in. Then I have Commissioners Downing, McGregor, and Zeta. Then I wanted to walk you through, and really what I'd like to do today is do some live numbers, so we could walk away from the end of this meeting going, yes, this is what the commission has agreed to put into your public hearing draft. So I want to be clear that I'm not making any recommendations on anything in this column G. What I instead have highlighted some issues where there doesn't seem to be consensus, and where it appears that you want to have some more conversation, as well as just to provide you with some additional background. So I think if we focus our attention over here on this column G, it does appear that there was consensus on everything through the commission video. So I just went ahead and moved those over, because it looked like all three of you were in agreement about that.
Whoa. I'm not reading it that way.
Really?
No, I mean, maybe I'm reading it wrong. So let's
Two
just
of
take
us.
VCB.
Oh, I'm sorry. Two, yes, perfect. I misspoke. That there were two of you that supported it, that there wasn't a consensus, but there were
big difference between majority
and I apologize.
consensus. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just comment on I just don't think, for example, the VCB or the chamber or the EDC contract are variable numbers, meaning you're all in or you're not in. I mean, that's my memory serves me. So in deference to Commissioner Zeta, I'm not sure we could go with, appreciate you trying to pair money here and there, but I'm not sure, we could go with 5,000.
Well, as I recall from our conversation about these same line items last year, those are variable numbers, and we do have flexibility, but I'm outnumbered on these, so I'm not going to argue the point.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Commissioner Downing, on commission video? Can we have that clarified, what that actually is? Is that just our meeting process of putting them out there, keeping them maintained on the meeting format?
That's actually included in on the commission budget. I think Jenny, are you still on the line here? Because I think that this item include some of Nate's work and things?
No, this
No.
does not. So this is strictly commission video. I think that's the recording service for our meetings.
Okay,
For the system in the conference room is my understanding. It's that service that we pay for to record them when we're live downstairs.
okay.
I could be off base though. I'm not 100% sure because that's normally something that's admin services takes care of.
If that's the case, could we have that labeled a little bit more clearly so that somebody looking at it could see, well, it's not the commission doing a video, it's the recording service or whatever, just to clarify? That would
Sure.
help if you could.
Okay.
So that legal services, not sure, I can guess what that is, but can you explain, why that's part of the commission budget for $10,000?
Certainly, and it's really for special counsel. So as you are all aware, we do have our own in-house legal counsel who can be responsive to almost all of the commission needs. And so she is responsive to other of the business units like on real estate and, public records and things like that. But there are times where the commission actually wants to have a commission or legal opinions rendered, such as, going to the 5-member council. For the most part, Ms. Brown will be able to handle that. And if you'll see over here in column G, I did indeed reduce this down to $1,000 because she is handling most of the things. I do want to, my understanding of authorizing in municipal budgets is that if we have a line item such as outside special counsels and we have a small amount of money in there, should the need arise later, then we actually have authority to go ahead and spend money in that. If you don't have any money at all authorized in there, we could be looking at the situation where we'd actually have to come back and amend the budget to just add that line that gives us the authority. So that's why I am suggesting that you can consider that you keep a small amount in the outside special counsel, recognizing that indeed Ms. Brown will be able to cover most of the needs that might arise for the commission itself, but keep it in a little bit so it gives us some flexibility.
So it's basically a placeholder.
It's basically a placeholder, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The next item I go down to is the travel amount, and I see that all of you were trying to be thrifty and cut that amount.
But can we back the bus up a little bit?
Mhm.
I see back up to Lacey Makerspace.
Mhm.
I see that was a write-in by Commissioner McGregor, and I was not aware that it was not, it didn't immediately occur to me that it was not on the budget. So I'm kind of in the plus column on that, meaning I'd like to see, I would include that 10,000. So Zita.
So last year, Commissioner Downing, when we discussed Lacey Makerspace, you and I agreed that this year should be the last year of funding. In fact, you and I both expressed surprise that it was funded this year at all. These are public funds going to a private club. And you and I said, okay, one last year, but that's it. And that would be this year. You recall that conversation?
No,
I do.
but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. So,
Yeah.
You're saying, when you say this year, you mean 2021?
Right. Last
we
year,
fund
this
it for
time,
2021.
when this came before us, you and I both said, wait a minute. I didn't think we were going to keep funding Lacey Makerspace for all these years. I thought it was just a short time thing. Why does it keep coming before us? It should not. You and I agreed on that. However, it ended up getting funded last year. And I maintained that enough is enough. of public funds going to a private club.
Why, Sam, why did you not have it in the budget? What was your understanding, Sam? Because you did not put it in this commission budget at all, and Commissioner McGregor, as I saw, did a write-in on it.
Yeah, I did not make a judgment about it at all. I knew that there were likely going to be conversation amongst the commission on both this and things like the small cities program, et cetera. So I'm completely neutral.
Okay,
So
okay, go
can I speak to that if I might?
sure, please.
Sure. So as I remember part of that conversation, I do remember that we were going to be committed for 3 years, I believe it was, because that's what the city of Lacey and St. Martin's College had agreed to a lease terms of 3 years for some of the one of the buildings over there that used to be the engineering labs. And so they did a space agreement and we were going to support for 3 years. However, during COVID, they were shut down. But that didn't mean they didn't quit doing things. And one of the things they did was made thousands of plastic masks that they set up and for the COVID to supply healthcare workers and that type of thing. So for a while there, people were not able to get in there because of the mandates of closure and what could be done. But those that were staff were able to get in there and work on it. I was hoping that we would have a presentation from City of Lacey and Graham Sackerson, who is the one of the makerspace leaders over there prior to our meeting, but we haven't been able to schedule it yet. But I think the Lacey Makerspace, I'm just asking for one more year to fill that gap. It is not necessarily a private club. They have opened it up to many different people. They have scholarships available, as I understand it. And people are making access of it. And I think it's had a very robust use over the last year that they've been able to get in there. So all I'm asking for is another year, and then it'll be up to the other commission if they want to continue that and continue to promote economic development, entrepreneurship, and with people learning special skills on special pieces of equipment, which helps the labor pool in this community. So that's my reason for putting it in there.
Commissioner Zeta, please.
Well, thanks for reminding us, Commissioner McGregor, that your expectation was that the port fund this gift to Lacey Makerspace for 3 years, and that we have done that now. We have funded it for 3 years, and that if we were to fund it again next year, that would be 4 years. As I recall, we did some horse trading last year, and part of the reason that this got approved last year was because the commission also approved $10,000 for community solar. And the community solar support was recommended by our POCAC, our Citizens Advisory Committee. I'm not sure what happened with that, but if we are going to consider funding Lacey Makerspace for yet another year, we should, to be fair, also continue funding of community solar, especially since our own Citizen Advisory Committee made a strong recommendation for that.
Well, thank you, commissioners. May I suggest we, circle back to that? Can we do that, Sam? Circle back? That'd be a question mark item.
You bet.
If this is a live sheet, is this a live sheet, Sam?
Yes. Mhm.
If it is, then would you kindly add community solar under Lacey Makerspace so that we can consider those together as we did last year?
So if I could just make it way down through the column, and then all three of you can just decide what you want me to add and things. So, but I would like to make it through the column, just point out a couple different things. One, again, the travel. Again, I saw again that all three of you are trying to be thrifty, and I appreciate that. This is for all three commissioners to attend the WPPA conferences, and there are two of those, as well as the new commissioner trainings, et cetera, and the commission conference throughout the year. These are actually based upon actual receipts. So in order for all three commissioners to attend those things, this is about what it costs. So I don't think that we can just, if you were to cut this in half, then there would not all three commissioners would be able to attend all of them. And particularly with onboarding new commissioners, I think you would want to think about that. I did want to go down and point out the PNWA conference, and I believe it was Commissioner McGregor that pointed this out to me. This really is a staff level type of membership, and so I think that we can move that over to the operating budget, into the executive budget, and we can transfer the cost there. And then the last thing I'd like to point out is this meeting expense, and it has it is pretty high for this year. Looking at it being paired with the $65,000 strategic planning for over on the other sheet, what we're thinking is that we would have a couple offsite places where there might be some overnight accommodations, et cetera. I think that most people really speak to, particularly with onboarding two new commissioners, as there's really high value in having that time away to get to know each other and to get to kind of gel up how you're going to function as a new commission. I do think that we could see some cost savings there, and so I did pare that down to $20,000. But again, that's just this is really now for you to play with. You can see this is what we have in the budget now, this $472,000, and the way that you have it up here, you still have $28,000 in here that could be you would not change what's going on the tax levy that way. And I do have this cell linked over to the tax levy. So no matter, whatever you end up with here on the commission budget, it'll transfer over to the tax levy sheet when we get to that.
Well, okay, clarification, please.
Mhm.
So you're saying 28,055, is that left
That's it.
unused from the top line, the
Correct.
commission draft budget, 472,822. So we have
Correct.
28,000 left unused.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
I'm with
the
you.
difference between this line and this line.
Okay.
So with that, I'm happy to serve as your scribe at this point. So I heard the suggestion from Commissioner Zeta that you actually add in a additional line for community solar. If you'd like for me to do that, if you'd like for me to start changing around some of the numbers, I'm more than happy to serve as your scribe as you seek to establish what you'd like this budget to be.
Well, just one second.
We don't
There's
need
a
agreement
lot-
on it now. That would be my suggestion. So you only need to put it under my column, and then we'll see if the other two agree in a later part of the discussion.
Okay, before we get to that, Commissioner Zeta, I just need one clarification. And that is, so on line 28, you have something called salaries and benefits.
Right.
Then you have commissioners, half the coordinator salary, and 1/3 of the general counsel. Now, how did 1/3 of the general counsel get in there?
I'm gonna see if Matt can take that question.
Sorry about that. We tried to allocate salaries based on where people mostly spent their time, and so tried to do our best to try to into each department where people spent time during the day or week or month, and we felt like at least for the general counsel, about 1/3 of her time would be spent on commission work, specific work.
Well, I have not seen that in the budget presented that way in prior years. you know, far as I'm concerned, I mean, I don't really get, the general counsel is representing the port. And primarily he or she or they safeguard the port against lawsuits from the outside. They review the many leases we have with tenants and so forth. You know, I wish somebody could be more specific in how the general counsel works for the Port Commission. I don't really see that.
Yeah,
So-
and I can be a bit more specific. So again, what we are always working to do is to strike that balance between being very, very specific on how any one staff member spends their time without then having that's what they do all the time. So we can do a fair and reasonable allocation of labor. So things that you're speaking of, so all of the lease reviews and things like that time gets allocated to properties. For example, time spent on stormwater and anything related to the things like with the ferry, that's either in-house counsel or special counsel, and that gets attributed and costed directly to the marine terminal. So those things we do track, and we all of the things that are specific to a business line, we do track and make that allocation to those specific business units. There is quite a bit of work, and I don't think we have Alicia on the line that does everything from reviewing commission meeting announcements or answering questions about the OPMA, making sure that we're staying in conformance with that, attendance at executive sessions to brief on everything from a potential litigation that is not specific to a business unit, public records. I think public records goes into into administration. That goes into admin as well. So I can certainly get a more detailed list of those duties, but we did feel like it was a fair approximation of about a third of the time of the general legal counsel is related to commission related topics. And so, for example, this year, all the 5-member commission work, which has been a great deal of work, that doesn't really belong with a specific business unit. It's really about the commission's direction and the overall organization.
Okay, okay, Commissioner Gregor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Perhaps what would make it a little clearer and a little easier to understand if we had 2 lines there, one that said salary and benefits commissioners, and then salary and benefits staff with the third general counsel, 1/2 coordinator. Kind of separate the 2 out so we can see what that is, because when we get down to it, we get to 5 commissioners. It's going to be rather easy to see that 3 commissioners are X, so 5 commissioners are going to be X divided by 3 times 5 or something like that. So it's a little easier to pull out of the budget. That's what I would recommend. Maybe that, and then that number doesn't look as large as it is, but it's still there nonetheless. So
Okay.
A little
Thank
clarity.
you. Okay.
Sure. And then the other issue that I also bring up is a couple of you had questions about the facility rental. That is for the commission meeting room. And again, we felt that was an appropriate expense to have on the commission budget, because that is absolutely the primary use for that, and that's the cost of that lease for that room.
That's that $20,000 number.
It's actually the facility rental.
Oh, 53,000.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll just have to register my objection. I think that a third of the general counsel, that's a little far-fetched, to use a nicest term as I can come up with. And also the facility rental, I mean, does that mean you're not going to use it for any meetings for staff or maintenance or marine terminal or, you know, special events? Because I know it gets used for all those things. So, you know, I just think there's a whole lot of padding of the commission. I'm not loving this. So, you know, and let's just see where it takes us.
Yep. Matt, can you speak to that facility rental amount? Is that for the full cost for that, or is it a portion of it?
Let's see here, sorry. It's based on the square footage of the entire lease per square
Yeah.
foot.
Yeah. So we could definitely do a split and take a portion of that, because you're absolutely right, Commissioner, that room is used by staff and other uses. So we could decrease that amount significantly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, that did not work. There.
Okay, better.
Okay. So are there other changes that Commission would like to, and Commissioner Zeta, you wanted me to put in here? I will add in that line.
Community solar.
Mhm.
Yeah, while you're putting in that in there, so was that in last year's budget, but it was unused? Is that the nature of what happened there?
No, the commission changed the budget and removed that. So it was actually not, it was not in the final adopted version.
I don't recall removing that.
It was removed at the last meeting. If you will recall, Commissioner Zeta, you were unfortunately ill. And
Oh, thanks,
not
guys. You owe me 20,000 now. I mean, you owe community solar 20,000 this year. That was rude.
Well, do they have so let me ask, do they have a request in? So is
Well,
that
they
a request?
They have asked what happened with the money that we budgeted for them last year.
Okay.
And that's an embarrassing answer. Oh, we took it out at the last minute. I've heard you express your commitment for that sort of thing, Commissioner Downing. Do you share that commitment or not?
Okay, we're ready to move on to, okay, so I'm in
Commissioner
favor
Downing,
of,
I don't know if you heard me on that or not.
I did. I don't always respond to you, Commissioner Zeta. I appreciate your question, though. I just want to, I'm on record for being in support of Lacey Makerspace and the community solar.
so I'm just going to put these in for now, and you can see what the effect is.
Now I have a question about an amount that Commissioner McGregor penciled in on his budget sheet, and that was $456,000 in real estate reinvestment. Do we have those funds available?
We haven't had a discussion on that. That will be part of our budget change request. Let me see where I put that. Okay, that is on the tax levy budget change request form. And I think we're working on the budget, the VB. Yeah, we're working on
This
the
is the
budget
commission
change.
budget. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be the next thing we talk about.
Mhm. Yeah. So if the commission is comfortable with this, we can then, and we could always come back to this, but then we could go over to the tax levy, because this one also rolls over.
Commissioner McGregor, go first.
No, go ahead. You had your hand up.
No, it's your turn.
Well, I was just going to say that if that $11,000 number is closer to actual, and with 2 new commissioners attending maybe up to 3 or 4 WPPA sponsored events, maybe closer to 9,000 is a better number for them. So that gives them, that's 3,000 per commissioner to, because some of those things are multi-day events where you're staying over 2, maybe 3 nights plus any meals. So mileage and that kind of thing. So maybe that's a better number to work from. I'm just bringing that up to my fellow commissioners. I mean, it doesn't mean they have to spend it, but at least it's there
You mean for the travel?
for the travel.
If staff says that that's the amount that was needed based on receipts, I would say we should keep it.
Keep it at what, 6,000 or 11,000?
11,250. If that's what staff says the commissioners need, we shouldn't shortchange the new commissioners.
That's fine with me. Leave it at 11,250. That work, Commissioner Downing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So where are we at on the bottom here? Okay, okay. And so Sam, you'll break out the salaries and benefits. So that'll show
Yeah.
us 2 different line items then at that
Yep.
point. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Zeta.
So when we discussed this at a previous meeting, at our last work session 2 weeks ago, staff indicated that we did not have any further commitment to Department of Enterprise Services on the EIS process for Capitol Lake. And in fact, we do still have a $30,000 outstanding commitment. I checked with the DES staff. And so I don't know where that comes in on our budget, but we do have a $30,000 commitment for 2022.
I think, Commissioner, if I might, we have that budgeted for the full $60,000 to be paid this year. So yeah, so we'll be, their thinking is if we just paid it out over the 2 years, but we budgeted to pay it all in 1 year.
Okay, I had understood, staff from DES confirmed that we had paid half of that.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So we'll make sure that they invoice us for the other part and then pay, because we budgeted the full 60.
That's great. Okay,
Mm.
and then similarly, the sea level rise Joint Advisory Committee that we have made a commitment to, my fellow commissioners will recall that we signed a letter of understanding or something this summer. They're still working on an estimate, but the city of Olympia has really been covering all the costs on that by providing their staff to run the meetings, write up the documents. They're writing a grant proposal for about $500,000 right now. And we agreed in that letter that we would all pay our share, city, lot, and port. We don't have a number from them yet, but I think it's going to be around 20,000.
Yeah. Mm.
So we should pencil that in. That is, if we indeed are committed to that joint process with our community partners.
Commissioner Downing, may I?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Lisa. Yeah, go ahead.
Both of those items are in the environmental budget.
Oh.
Okay.
The-
Yeah. What,
There you go.
Lisa?
Money to support the Capitol Lake Deschutes Estuary long-term management plan and sea level rise are both in the environmental budget.
Can you tell me what page that's on, Lisa, in our big budget book? I'm sorry, I missed that.
It's not identified specifically. It's part of an aggregate number, and I will look for that and put it in the chat if that's all right.
That'd be great. Thank you. And can you tell me how much we have budgeted for the sea level rise?
I can put that in there as well. I need to look at my sheet to be able to give you the exact number.
I
Great,
think
thank
it
you.
was, I think it was right around $20,000, Commissioner Zeta, but
Okay,
Lisa will check.
very good. Just want to make sure that we're keeping our commitments to our community. And then somewhere there was, oh yeah, election expense for the 5-member commission. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Great. Are there any other issues on it? Because again, this amount is linked over to the tax levy amount, so we could go over to there and we can start looking at that sheet if the commission is ready. Okay. Again, I'll just kind of walk you through here. Again, I'm here to serve as your scribe. Do keep this amount open for bank capacity, should you choose to use that. Captured what all three of you sent in. Commissioner McGregor, we did have the question of the real estate fund, and I'll let you speak to that as we move through here. Saw that 2 commissioners would like to add funding in for the small cities. Down here, what my one suggestion for the Centennial project, that would be kind of the legacy project, that we could move that over to the capital budget. I think that's definitely much more appropriate for the capital budget, because it's a you know a one-time expenditure. It might take 2 years to design it and then actually build it. Would like to, I think that if we put in $50,000 on the capital budget for this year, that would be more than ample to design it, bring some concepts back to the commission, have them approve the concept, and then give you a budget going forward from there. Kept this at the Centennial events. Again, this is absolutely, it's not a recommendation. It's just that, having some level of funding in there, and that's up for your discussion. And yeah, and then at this point, if we have the commission expense, so that's linked back over to the other page. So now, that's gone down from the 472, but at this point you are into deficit spending here on the tax levy. So we need to look at, how we're going to balance this, either by taking some bank capacity, or to look at some of these items. And again, looking at really pretty minimal amount of support for Centennial events. But I will let you all discuss now, and I'll serve as your scribe.
Well,
I just have,
just a second,
I
Commissioner
just wanted-
Zeta. Sam, can you do the freeze pane so we can see the headings at the top?
Yep.
As when you scroll down again.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
And sorry, Commissioner Zeta, I wanted to get that technical question in. Go ahead.
Oh.
If you click on the number right underneath 1% new construction, click on that 6.9 million. And then choose freeze pane.
Nope, still not going.
Go back to freeze pane. Go down to the, oh, it's still on unfreeze pane. Okay, unfreeze panes first, and now go to freeze panes. There you go, freeze pane. Okay, there you
There we
go.
go.
So
Thank you
I
for that
just
assistance.
under commission expense, the numbers under commission expense are not reflecting the amounts that came from our columns on our spreadsheet. We got the same amount on all of them. Mine's a lot lower. Mine's 91,000 something like that dollars lower. So if those, and I had sent this suggestion to staff last week, if you were to click on the commission expense box for Downing and then paste in the one from the other sheet, then we would have the actual commission expenses from each of us. So if you stay here-
I can just link these in here.
Well, they won't be active links, but you could.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what you're wanting me to have this be the linked current amount.
Yeah, because we all have different amounts there
Must
from
see,
the other page, from the other worksheet.
oh, but we ended up with this one.
And that's not the one that's on the sheet either for each of us.
Yeah, so this cell links over to this cell.
But
Right.
the other three for us don't. The three to
So-
the left of that?
Mhm.
If cell G, yeah. You just
That's right.
click and drag
DE,
across.
That's right. You could try pasting those. Now just click on the one and you'll be good. There you go.
Oh, something happened.
You just need to link it. Paste special link. You'll have to copy it again. So if you go back and copy it, you should
There you go. Good. Great.
Well, can we go through line by line? Because I'm not really tracking. I mean, not starting with the tax levy, but starting with how we're going to spend the money and see how that relates back up to the tax levy.
Mhm. Right.
So for example, line 16 and line 17, we don't have a lot of choice. Everybody put the amount in there. Line 18. Everybody's good with that. Line 19. Then line 20, the Harbor Patrol. Was everybody good with that? Are we getting the right numbers? Oh, okay. Okay, we're good with that.
Yep.
And then small cities, Downing and McGregor
I
say,
support the small cities.
oh, okay. So you want to put 40,000 in there for Zeta just for the sake of
Okay.
purity. And then
I
special
think you want to
projects,
put minus 40.
Oh, thank
yeah,
you.
minus 40, yeah.
I don't think they're going to pay us 40.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no.
Then the ballot proposition, 5-member redistricting, no disagreement there. Then the Centennial events and the Centennial project. So Centennial events, staff is proposing 76,000. McGregor says half of that, and Zeta says 10,000. So did you put in 10,000?
Well, Sam had proposed to get this from another budget. Most of it from another
The
budget.
Centennial project, yes. So I think you could easily move that over to the capital budget.
What about the Centennial events? And so we're all over the map on
Exactly.
those. I mean, you know, McGregor is in the middle. Commissioner McGregor, you put in 38,000. So is that, did you cut it in half? Is
That's
that true?
basically, I thought that should be adequate for the number of events over the course of those few months.
So Sam, had you proposed to get the events funding from another budget also?
No.
Oh.
Mm-mm.
Thank you, Lisa.
So I mean, I would propose we put in Commissioner McGregor's in the middle. So I would put in the $38,000 number in the, you might say, consensus. And so after all that, strategic planning, I didn't mean to, I see what that's for now. Anyway, 65,000. And that leaves us short 39,603. Is that true, Sam?
Yes.
So going back up to the top of the page. So you're saying even with this column on the far right, which says tax levy, roughly speaking, 6.9 million, 1% increase, 69,369. New construction, 124,262. Administrative refund re-levy, 25,331. With all that, we're still 35,000 short.
Right. Yeah.
Would you kindly make the commission expense numbers that you pasted in? Could you make those negative, please?
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Thank Just hit return after you do that.
Um,
You're going to have to there you go. After you put in the negative, just hit return.
yeah.
Don't click on anything.
Yeah. It's what you get when you have everybody watching you do something live.
Yep.
Yep.
So McGregor and Zeta have a surplus in their budgets. Is that right?
Yes.
So we're getting close.
So it's actually with because this number is actually should be this is what you've agreed upon. So if you're going to compare apples to apples, you would have the commission budget be the same for all of these.
Well, yeah, and based on what Commissioner Zeta said, there's got to be an error in a formula because McGregor can't have 99,000 to the good. Or maybe he can.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know. I thought I was doing pretty good there.
I know you did, but I was looking at a different line. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Would you be able to share the spreadsheet with us after the meeting
Mm-hmm. Yep.
as a live spreadsheet?
Yep.
Great.
So-
Thank
One reason I am showing a positive is because I have the bank capacity 200,000 in my.
Oh,
field.
yes,
That's
exactly.
why.
Oh. So when can we talk about this real estate investment thing?
I can talk about it anytime we're ready.
Mhm.
So if Commissioner Downing, do you want me to proceed or? what would you
Well,
like to do?
I guess we're not deciding on the tax levy tonight. What we need to work on is this 39,603 deficit,
Mhm.
even with the 1% increase in the tax levy, which in case you couldn't read the tea leaves, I feel like keeping, I feel like if the port's improving year to year, then we should be increasing our tax levy less and less. So even if we stand still, apparently, just with the increase of assessed value, every household is going to pay more for everything because it's just the increase in the assessment on their home. So we're going to get money year over year without, never mind the 1% or the bank capacity. So anyway, so that's a
Mhm.
discussion a little bit for further down the road, but I guess we're not going to decide here and now about the tax levy.
So commissioners, what I would like to leave this work session with is direction of what you would like to have placed in the draft budget that's going to become your public hearing draft. So I am looking to have, how would you like to proceed with this so that we can, because we're going to need to turn this budget around and get it get it ready to publish that can get advertised and go out to the public for review.
Well, if there is an additional $456,000 potentially available without raising people's taxes with this real estate investment restructure fund, then that could provide a way for us to balance the budget and reduce the taxes to individual homeowners. So my question is whether there is indeed over $400,000 available in this real estate investment restructure fund.
Yes, if I can,
Oh,
if I can speak to that, just what the fund is. So the commission created a fund that when property is sold, that it is then put into a reserve account that then has requirements on it that it only be used for acquisition of additional real property. So it is a cash balance that is available for the purchase of properties. And I can give you the policy number for that. And I believe that amount is, and Commissioner McGregor, you have that because I know you checked with Matt. It's like 432 or 452.
456,000 and change. And let me start out by saying that this policy was developed back in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. And at that time, the port had sold some property. If you remember, we sold property across the bay to the city of Olympia, did some cleanup over there by the railroad tracks that used to be there. But this has been in that restricted fund for a number of years. We used some of that to purchase properties over time. And as of the last couple of years, it has gotten down to $456,000. And so I'm listening to us talking at the last meeting, and at the last meeting we said, oh, well, broadband, we need to get into broadband. Here's what we need to do. We need to get on and support broadband for our community as a public good that would bring it to most households, and working with the tribes, working with the PUD who's doing a survey, and the county who's putting $5 million into it, into this fund. And I'm thinking, how can we have some, and I'll call it skin in the game, and not just be giving words of encouragement, but have actually participate. And it dawned on me that this $456,000 has probably been pretty much a flat number for a couple of years now. We haven't used it for anything, but it's just sitting there. And well, it's true, it's probably gathering interest in the Thurston County banking structure, not much. But if we want to be serious about getting into broadband, here's an opportunity to take a look at the policy or the resolution that was developed. I'm not sure which one it was, and see if there's not a way to provide money out of that account, and whatever that number might be. It could be all of it, it could be part of it, but at least have funding available to put into the pool as we start to expand the use of broadband in our community for the good of the citizens. So that's my suggestion. There is money there. I think we need to look at it. I think we need to see if there's have Felicia, have Felicia look at it and see if we just need to change the resolution, change the policy, but put some money in the budget designated and restricted for the installation or use of broadband to benefit the community, and get on board with some of these other agencies that are moving forward. And because you have that broadband action team, I think that's meeting regularly. So here's an opportunity for us to say, yes, we believe in broadband, and here's what we're willing to do. So either that, or we have to take the bank capacity if we want to, but I think we need to step forward and say, we've got some money set aside to help potentially get more grant monies, because it increases the matrix the more you have people and partners involved. So anyway, that's my statement, and that's why I put it on there, something to think about as commissioners. So
I agree with Commissioner McGregor. If we can use that real estate fund for broadband, that would be great. Let's do it. At least part of it.
because we don't even have broadband in the budget. There's nothing in there that says broadband. That could be an added line item in our capital plan with designated money to use. It may not get used this year because of timing, but it could roll over into the next year. But I think the first step is, can we use that money for broadband? And if so, what do we need to change, either the policy or the resolution, so that we can access that legally?
We had provisionally committed as a commission to spending 200,000 for broadband 3-4 years ago. And I think it's a good idea. Let's do it if we can. We have a good community partnership in the Broadband Action Team. They're moving forward with millions of dollars. And if we can make at least this small contribution, we should.
Good. I have no objection to that. I think we can key off the POCAC report and the folks that we want to line up with. I know there's good efforts underway within the county, so that doesn't solve the tax dilemma. So I think where we're at, I'm all in favor of putting something in the capital plan. If Felicia can investigate whether or not we can access some of that 456,000, that's great. Not sure that solves our tax levy dilemma.
That still leaves us with a 39,600 deficit. And I don't know, maybe there's some reducing the Centennial events a little bit more to get it closer. I mean, I don't want to cut it too short. I want it to be realistic and be able to promote it. And I don't know, maybe there's some other areas. I don't see much. Pretty much everything else is in alignment with what we've all been thinking. So, but a little bit there, maybe make it 25,000, see what happens. That gets it down to, does that get it to $26,000 short? But anyway, I think that maybe that was what we should take a look at. Or we take some of the bank capacity to make it zero. That 39,000.
It's bad enough that we're already taking the 1%. I really don't like to do that. So I don't want to look at the bank capacity. I think you're headed the right direction, Commissioner McGregor. If we can pare down a little here and a little there.
Well, yeah.
I kind of agree. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm sorry. I looked at my tax thing I just got in the mail. It wasn't too long ago. And at the 15 cent, the 1585 millage rate, my taxes on property would go up $5 for the year. So, I mean, it's not and that's using I think with the bank capacity. So it's not a terrible amount of money. I agree. I don't much for promoting the raising of taxes, but when we're starting to get into what's for the community good, I think maybe there's a way to use some of that broadband money to help take care of that deficit, if that's a possibility. I don't know, but need to think about it. Go ahead, Commissioner. I'm done. Thank you.
Well, I'm looking at the, I'm kind of like Zeta. I'd rather not use that 1% bank capacity. I just don't feel like it this year. I feel like, we need to move towards less of a tax burden. And, Sam, you're achieving a better port performance always around. I mean, obviously you are, because we've got $2 million to spend on capital projects potentially. So that's good. I got to keep looking at the public amenities for 281,000. I mean, that's all maintenance. I mean, is there any way to, pare that number down? I'm looking at that. I'm looking at community events. And so I'm looking at, just a few areas that we could, pare a little bit. So are we saying that if we get that 39,000 covered, I'm not looking at the, oh, yes, I am. 1% plus, what are we looking at, Sam, on this spreadsheet in terms of taxation?
It has the 1% and the new construction included in.
So really, we're trying to cover 69,000 plus the 34,000.
Right.
If we're trying to avoid the 1%.
Right. And commissioners, just you know, so I absolutely applaud you for your diligence and trying to be accountable to the citizens. And for example, in the in the public amenities, that's mostly salaries, and we really do keep track of. And those are based upon, you know, not just estimates, but really looking at what amount of time it takes to do the upkeep, as well as some materials. You know, inflation this year is well up over 5.5%. We have salary costs that are going up, you know, at minimum 3.5%. And so, you know, this is just, it is part of the conundrum of when you have escalating costs to provide the same amount of services. So that amount for public amenities, it's you know, that's what it costs for our staff to take care of things. And that's, you know, the Billy Frank Jr. Trail, Port Plaza, you know, some of the other upland landscaping. It has a few other things in there that off the top of my head, I'm not recalling, but you know, those are really, you know, Alicia is doing a really good job of tracking people's time in Manager Plus now, so that we can really look and see where are the maintenance folks spending their time. And this has actually gone down over years past, because we're actually allocating more back over to the marina in landscaping.
Well, go ahead, Commissioner Zeta, please.
So I support your suggestion, Commissioner Downing, that we maybe reduce the maintenance budget. I support Commissioner McGregor's suggestion that we maybe reduce the Centennial events. Marketing budget is big and could maybe cover some of the Centennial events. The maintenance budget, we're still waiting for those data. There's a couple of big line item expenses that we discussed earlier, like the RV resort, that could solve this budget problem for this year.
I wonder if we should go back and look at, since, you know, I'm extremely appreciative of my fellow commissioners that they're on board with the 5-member commission board, and that's a big expense for next year, as well as the Centennial events. That's a big, these are not normal expenses that we have coming out of the commission budget. So, you know, I would be happy with, you know, I guess paring down that 39,000, and then and going with the tax levy as proposed, so we don't have to cover another 69,000, because as I say, we have a couple of unusually big expenses on behalf of the commission. But can we look at the commission expense one more time and see if we can, is there anything else we can pair from that number, because that flows into this?
Well, I just want to remind my fellow commissioners that the VCB contract, Thurston Chamber contract, and EDC contract are not fixed amounts. We are not committed to those amounts. And if we could reduce each of those a little bit, it would get us pretty darn close.
I mean, okay. Okay, well, I don't have anything. I'm sorry, guys. I just, can't come up with anything because I appreciate you, Commissioner Zeta, saying, that some of these contracts are not fixed amounts.
And commissioners, if you look over here on this budget, as Commissioner Downing pointed out, these two items are really putting a lot of pressure on the on this budget this year. We do think that the ballot proposition is that's that's about what it costs to run one commission position. So that we think that that's pretty good. The redistricting amount, we actually did some research on that, and that is based upon what Snohomish County did for their redistricting. It is possible that if we went with and Thurston County decides to go to their 5-member at the same time, that we could share that cost for redistricting. We just don't know, because we don't know whether or not they're going to reach their 300,000 population threshold and then be able to proceed next year with their redistricting. But if they were, it is possible that cost could be reduced as well. But that's our best guess estimate for now. I will put a pitch in here for the Centennial events. Again, I really appreciate that you are all trying to be responsible. It is a once in a century time for us to really make people aware of the contributions that the port makes. This is, probably half of what I think Port of Bellingham or Port of Everett has spent. Well, and there's a kind of comparable size ports. I'd hate to see you cut that too short for that kind of celebration that is, really again, once in 100 years. I would tell you that for these kind of one-time expenditure items, what you could do is, rather than placing this on your levy, that you could actually, because what we're really talking about is this is what's going to be going on your levy, that you can keep this still in your non-operating budget, but use a cash balance to cover that. So that way it still keeps it in the non-operating budget, but it takes it off of your budget, that your tax levy that's going to be renewed every year. So
Which one were you talking about? Which line were you talking about, Sam?
I'm talking about both the Centennial events as well as the ballot and redistricting costs, because those are really one-time expenditures. And so what you could do is to infuse cash into your non-operating budget and use a cash balance to balance it out for this year. And I can tell you, I can hear my staff, because I am not one to offer up using your cash balance very often, because we have a lot of capital projects to do. But I think that these really are unusual expenditures. They're not going to be, repeated year after year.
Okay, good. I mean, that kind of works for me. That works for me. I mean, if we can pull something like that off, I guess, it's a little bit of an accounting thing, but I can realize where they're not regular expenditures. The only other thing I was going to suggest was next year is not an ideal year for strategic planning. I
Right.
mean, I would say, it's not an ideal year because I know that the learning curve for new commissioners is at least a year, maybe two. And so I'm not sure that it's the best thing for my two new commissioners to be undertaking next year. So that's just a thought, is we could, could we push out the strategic planning by 1 year? Go ahead, Commissioner Zeta.
I think we should leave the strategic planning in the budget and let that be up to the new commissioners. If they want to delay it a year, they can do that.
Okay.
Well, I gotta voice the opposite. I was thinking along the same lines as Commissioner Downing, that the 65,000, I just can't see the bottom, 65,000, taking that out of there and pushing it into 2023's budget seemed to be more appropriate than trying to do a strategic plan with two new commissioners that are early on in their process. And I was thinking that, I mean, Centennial events, where are we at? We're back up at 50,000 now on that? I thought we were going to be at 38 or below.
Yeah, so I just put that back in. I'm just playing with some numbers.
Yeah, so if you were to take 20, make that 25, I mean, I don't want to cut it too bad, but we do have some unusual expenses with the 150,000 for with election and redistricting expenses in there, but why did it go up?
Oh, because nope, that's minus 25.
Yeah.
So that's a positive number there. So
So if you're talking about not using bank capacity, then it would be within $27,000 of being there, right? Or make the strategic plan late in October, November, and make it a smaller number, like make it 40,000. Or if you take it out altogether, we're within $8,000.
Make what, 40,000?
If you took strategic planning out altogether, we would be within $8,000, I think, weren't we?
I think, that's a gift that we give to the new commissioners, whoever they may be. And if we don't put that in the budget for next year, then we're leaving them with a burden to come up with that extra 65,000 in the following year. And we're not giving them the option to do the organizational work that they need to do as new commissioners. So I think we would be doing the public, the voters who are choosing the two new commissioners, a disservice by removing the strategic planning budget. We're already overdue for strategic planning. We pushed it out a little bit so that the new commissioners could do the strategic planning. It would not be right to push it out further and leave the burden of coming up with those funds to the new commissioners. It's our job to set them up for success.
So I would argue that we have two $75,000 expenses that we won't have next year. And that's $150,000 total that they would be able to use for some strategic planning and for some of these other projects that are going to be coming forward. That's all I'm saying, is if we're going to do the 5 commissioner and we're committed to that, then that needs to stay in this year. I think the strategic plan could go out one more year and it would impact us that greatly.
And if it can, then it will be reserved in the budget, and that will make it that much easier for that difficult and relatively expensive transition. So if we can make that easier for everybody by leaving the 65,000 in for planning, which is overdue already, that would be responsible on our part.
But if we leave it in there and we don't take the bank capacity, then we're going to be in a negative, correct, Sam?
Unless we use
The thing
cash
is moving
reserves.
around too much. I can't keep track.
oh, I'm sorry. I put that in bank capacity rather than using cash. My apologies for
Oh,
that.
I see what you did.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So I'm saying if you
So-
use cash here,
Okay, then go down to the bottom. What does it
right.
do? Now we're to the
now you're in
positive.
positive.
Okay, that's fine then.
Yeah.
Then
so-
you can
I do
put your,
have
whatever. Go ahead. Sita.
Well, I have a question about the redistricting and the ballot proposition.
Mhm.
If the, whoops, we're seeing
Maybe I
someone's
did.
messaging.
Cancel, sorry about that.
So the total cost for the ballot proposition and redistricting is penciled in at 150,000. Is that envisioned to be the whole cost or our half with the county paying?
That is envisioned to be one, our ballot proposition, so that stands on its own. So that's the 75,000, and then the $75,000 if we did it ourselves. So
I thought we agreed that we were going to do this with the county.
if they, we agreed that we were going to proceed forward, and if they hit their 300,000 threshold and they decide to proceed. So there is a scenario under which that they are not able to proceed.
I would suggest that we have those amounts, the ballot proposition and the 5-member redistricting, so that when we move forward on this, it's with the county. And if that doesn't happen next year, if it's not until the following year, we'll still be doing it with the county. The reasons for doing it with the county were to be responsible with taxpayer money and to make it less confusing for voters. And so in any case, we should be doing this with the county. So we shouldn't be going it alone. We should expect that the county is going to be paying half the costs. So we should only have 75,000 total earmarked here.
So it would only, in that scenario, it would only affect the cost of the redistricting. The cost of our ballot proposition wouldn't change, because it needs to stand on its own, and it would cost $75,000 to run that. They have to run their own one. But I hear what you're saying. It's like, there is if the two entities proceed together, then that redistricting cost could in theory be halved.
So
And-
since we had agreed to go together with the commission, with the county commission, I thought we should plan on spending half this.
Well,
Commissioner-
also, can I just say something?
Mhm.
Also, it just occurred to me that building off of what Commissioner Zeta said is that, if it happens, and we hope it happens, that there's a ballot measure November of 2022, there's no redistricting taking place until the population, the voters vote for this to happen. So
Right.
therefore, late 2022 is when redistricting starts, and it continues on into Q1 2023. So I guess I would say that, what we might spend on redistricting, part of it's going to be in 2023. So I would think that we're not going to spend the whole 75,000 in literally 1 month. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Right.
and we've thought through that. There's actually a very, very short timeline on that of when so we basically have to have it all lined up, because there's only like 3 or 4 months. But because you have to turn it around pretty quickly by statute. I do want to note,
Good.
commissioners, that we are scheduled to adjourn into executive session here in like one minute.
Okay, I think we're going to have to, reconvene after the executive session if you want. to
Commissioner
get this-
Gregor's hands up.
If you want to get this done today. So,
Well, I think we're the number at the bottom keeps moving, so I don't know what's shifting around, but I think that we're in good shape here, because if we're going to use 50,000 out of our cash reserves to make this balance, that takes care of the issue we've been talking about. It also leaves the redistricting at 75 and the Centennial events at 38. It still shows a positive of 23, and this might not even happen all this next year. So I think that what we've got is, we took the, go back up to the top, would you?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So tax levy, we've got the refund, the new construction, and the 1% increase, and taking 50,000 of cash, and we're still 27,000, the last number I saw, but if you take
47.
Well, but you had member redistricting, if you take 37 off of that. Anyway,
Right.
I think we're where we need to be. I think we just need to say, this is where we're going to be. We do have to get to a 4:30, and I don't have time after to reconvene. So either we call for
Okay.
another special meeting to go on, but I think we're there. I think we've all kind of hashed this out. I feel comfortable with what's there now. So I think we've
Okay.
gotten much closer to where we need to be. So I'll be quiet now so we can.
Okay, are you good with this? We're pretty darn close. Commissioner Zeta?
This is a good draft. We'll get another chance to take a look at it. I think we've made great progress.
Okay. Okay, good. Good, guys. Sam, you have one more agenda item. Can we skip that agenda item?
Yes.
And-
Mhm. Yep.
Okay, I'd like to call for a motion to close this meeting.
So moved.
Commissioner, just point of order. You are actually going to recess into executive session, and then you'll come back out of that and adjourn.
How do we do that? Okay, sure.
So,
I'm with you.
motion-
but,
motion-
Move that we
recess.
recess into executive session.
Yes, we can. We're going to recess into executive session, but I'm saying physically, how do we do that? Does everybody leave except for the four of us and Felicia comes in, or?
We have,
We have a
Yes.
separate meeting.
Separate
Should be-
meeting.
Should be a separate meeting set up.
yep,
How am I
Okay.
going to come back into this meeting? To close? Not sure how I come back to this meeting to close. I don't think I can have two sessions on.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think I think
I-
I think you should, I'm gonna rescind. I think you should adjourn out of this one and then adjourn into executive session.
I thought it was a separate agenda. that
Oh,
was
Felicia.
published.
This meeting was announced to end at 4:30,
Uh-huh.
so it's okay to adjourn it
Okay.
and say that.
Yeah.
Okay, you can adjourn this meeting and go to executive session. Thank you,
I'm
Felicia.
on there, but I'm not visible.
Okay,
All those
So-
in favor of adjourning and moving over to executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. See you in executive session.
Mhm.